good habit to add comments to your code. There will be times when you'll go back to a project that you did a year or two earlier and need to make some changes. And if you've left some comments on what you were doing and why you were doing certain things, you will find that very helpful. Likewise, if you take over a project from another programmer or working as part of a team environment, having their comments will probably prove to be very critical. And so it's just good practice to add comments into our code. In Visual Basic, it's really easy to do that. So add a comment in code. You simply start with a single quote or an apostrophe, and I can type "this is a comment." Now if I were to type that same line without the apostrophe, the compiler gives me some squigglies. It doesn't understand what that is. So by putting the apostrophe in front of it, everything in front, or everything behind that apostrophe is ignored. I can do the same thing on a line of code. So I might comment out what a particular line is doing or something about that line. So I could say, in this case, the output is formatted for 2 decimal places. And so I have my line of code that would get executed, and then here's a comment that is not executed, and it's ignored by the compiler. If I put single quotes inside of double quotes, those would be ignored. This is a literal string as defined by those 2 double quotes, and everything inside is already ignored. So if you need to use single quotes somewhere, put them inside double quotes. We can also add blocks of comments by preceding each line with a apostrophe. And I might do that in a word processor and just paste it in, or we can type that in here in Visual Studio. I can also comment out multiple lines. Let's say I wanted to comment out this whole sub-procedure. Maybe it was something I tried and said I wasn't going to use, but I don't want to get rid of the code. I just want to comment it out so that the compiler doesn't try to compile it. And if you're using the full version of Visual Studio, and this does not work in the Express version, but in Visual Studio, if you go under Edit, down to Advanced, there is a Comment Selection and Uncomment Selection menu items. So I've selected all that code. I'm going to choose Comment Selection, and it now has placed apostrophes in front of each of those lines and commented out that entire section of code, and so it's no longer compiled. If I later decide I want to use this code again, I can select it, come back to Edit, Advanced, Uncomment Selection, and it's now available to me. On the C# side of the house, if I want to add in comments, I would proceed a line with 2 slashes. And so everything after those slashes would be considered a comment and ignored by the compiler. And as we saw in VB, I can also do that on a line of code at the end. So I might add a comment here that this declares 3 string variables. I can add a block comment in C# by preceding each line with slashes. Or I can start a block with a slash asterisk or slash star and conclude that block with a asterisk slash. And everything between the slash asterisk and asterisk slash will be viewed as a block comment. And then as we saw in VB, if I'm working in the full version of Visual Studio, I can select a block of code and go under the Edit menu, go down to Advanced, and choose Comment Selection, and it will add 2 slashes in front of each of those lines, and it would no longer, that code would no longer be compiled. If I wanted to then later use that code again, I can come back under Edit, Advanced, and uncomment that selection. I could also comment out a block of code by using that slash asterisk and ending the block I want to comment out with an asterisk slash.